Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 1370. Send them home. Librarian Barry smiled at the Black Dragon's words. That's what I've been saying. Emissary Carl should extend his generosity to the rest of the palace and start training young dragons in essential skills using these most wonderful skills of his. The echo of a divine voice rang through Dacarian's mind, and the Avatar smiled. I think I understand more clearly now. You really must not be allowed to have a baby dragon. After a month together, it would be riding on your shoulder like a cat, just so it didn't miss anything. He joked. Kara smirked, then climbed up Carl's back to sit on his shoulder, using the large feathered wings of his Tengu form for balance. Like that, but with scales. Dacarian agreed. That combo is a bit terrifying, even without considering that the Tengu form is just a disguise. Chaos and pranks together at mythic rank are just overkill. Librarian Barry agreed. Avatar Carl, is there a chance that this can be enchanted as a permanent feature of the castle when you leave? The other children would love a chance to train on such exceptional grounds. Dacarian asked. Carl shrugged. I don't see the harm in it. Making an illusionary domain enchantment isn't all that difficult, and I could place the spell on room with all the essential functions. This one is actually cast on the whole suite, and the rooftop outside so that there's more room for the children to fly. But you can only access it from the door to my suite. You can really do it? Barry asked. Of course. I won't even need an illusion stone for something this simple. I can just carve the runes into the stone of a room and recreate the effect. Carl paused as he remembered that they were not aware of his trade skill. He had forgotten for a moment that he was in the past, and not at home. The blue dragon was almost nose to nose with him again, drawn in by the possibility of Carl escaping without explaining his secret knowledge. Then Kara licked his face. Ah, right. Sorry. Personal space. What skill do you have that allows you to do that? He asked. Rune crafting. Both dragons and nearly all the staff in the room froze, then turned to stare at him. You're a rune lord? Barry whispered reverently. I should have told them that it was me. I wouldn't mind having dragons worship me. Kara sighed. You'd still make me do the work for you. Carl reminded her. Not if they were going to look at me that way. The last time I saw that look, Lotus was giving it to a slice of cake. Carl's smile confused the older dragons. Was he messing with them? Or was he laughing at their reaction? Just pick a room and I will make a copy of this training space in it for the kids. Carl informed them. He could make it on a statue if he wanted, but that wouldn't be nearly as impressive to most people as altering an actual room in the castle. An artifact could be restricted or hidden away, but a physical room would become a part of castle lore. He agreed too easily, Dacarian noted, which means that this room isn't the extent of his skills, but something that he threw together on short notice for the kids to come play in. Barry agreed. Kara smirked, and one of the Foxkin maids came over to give the crestfallen blue dragon a commiserating pat on the shoulder. It's not the end of the world, friend. You'll get to see many more wonderful uses of this skill in the future. She consoled him. Barry smiled. Like gargoyles that display empathy? That's a new one. They're usually nearly inanimate unless someone threatens their space. The maid winked at him. Ask the Carl about what he does for real combat trials. We're just guardians of the garden who will play with the kids. Dacarian frowned. There is something wrong with your gargoyle spell. I swear that they're not supposed to encourage people to dig into your secrets. But I've never seen them speak before either. So perhaps they're always like this. Carl shook his head. No, I modified the spell to activate it within the illusionary domain, then used reality warp to make them more lifelike. And you know how foxes are. The librarian sighed dejectedly as he realized that was another spell that he was unlikely to ever be able to learn. Having Carl around seemed determined to frustrate him. Every question he asked only left him with 2 more questions that needed answers. What does reality warp do? He asked, knowing that the answer was only going to annoy him more than it satisfied his curiosity. It's not as extreme as the name sounds. It makes illusions solid at the rank that they were cast. So, if I use a mythic illusion to make an army of winged void badgers, I can turn them into solid void badgers with the spell. They're still illusions, so they will only have skills if they're within an illusionary domain that I control. But they will otherwise be solid creatures. Carl elaborated. Both dragons were silent as they considered the implications of that. It was true that an illusion was greatly limited. Given autonomy, it took exceptional affinity or multiple enchantments on an item for the illusion to simulate a skill effect. But inside the illusionary domain, the skill would become real because the illusion demanded it. The bar was much lower. It just relied on the illusionary domain remaining intact. While they were preparing questions, Kara flew off Carl's shoulder and darted through the obstacle course, passing multiple dragons on the way, and turning one particularly hapless dragon around, causing him to fly back through the same hoops he had just completed. Then he stopped, confused when he realized he was back where he started. I should have put lights on them so they knew what ones they had done. But that doesn't work with multiple racers. Carl sighed. Just one more reason for everyone to watch. Every race needs a good referee. Dakarian agreed. But how do we make them stop racing? You know we're all going to get yelled at when 30 parents have to come personally collect their kids who are pretending they can't hear the staff. Chapter 1371, Hiding Spot Found. And the annoyed guardians coming to collect the kids was exactly what happened. Where is my wayward sister? And why are there so many young dragons here? There are nobles all over the royal wing looking for them. Nobody knows what room you are in. Prince Lucas complained. Carl's expression changed from confused to bemused as he realized the chaos that they had inadvertently caused. The palace staff had relocated them to an unused section of the palace because the princess room wasn't suitable to be exposed to outsiders, and foreigners weren't traditionally housed in the royal wing, except to place them close to residents of the wing. So, when the other noble children's parents came looking, everyone who knew where they had gone was already at the suite, watching the children. That led to dozens of nobles wandering aimlessly, looking for an envoy that only a few of them had properly met, and most of them couldn't describe properly outside his dragon form, which had been what made the biggest impression on them. Fortunately, that was enough for some of the servants who were up on the gossip to lead them in the right direction. But this wing was so unused that there wasn't anyone nearby to guide them when they got close. At least not before the first of them found it, entirely accidentally. Oh my! This is quite the room. Tell me, what did you have to do to get the king to grant you a training facility like this? And why wasn't this in use before? The mythic ranked dragon pleaded as he entered the training area. This is actually a standard visitor suite and a rooftop patio that I converted with an illusionary domain. That's why you don't recognize it. Now, I take it that one of these younglings is yours? Carl asked. The one with the missing front teeth. The dragon agreed. That made it easy. The boy was missing his front teeth in both dragon and humanoid form, and they left a very noticeable gap. He's on the ground over there by the obstacle course. I think that he clipped his wing on the hoop again. Barry noted. Thank you, librarian. The mother dragon tried not to laugh as her boy got to his 4 feet and cursed fluently in Draconic, then flapped back to the end of the line to wait his turn to start again. You brat, get over here. Don't tell me that you lost track of time. I can see the maid I sent to fetch you. His mother shouted. The boy took one look at her and bolted, headed for the edge of the illusion. Unfortunately for him, he was flying the wrong way, and that side of the illusion was an interior wall of the suite in reality. He couldn't escape in that direction. With a resounding thud, he bounced off the barrier at the edge of the spell, put in place by Carl to prevent anyone from wandering into someone's bedroom or falling out of a castle window. The little dragon rubbed his head as he got back to his feet and glared at the barrier that didn't let him flee his mother, while the woman stood with her hands on her hips. Nice try. Now transform back. It's time to head to Grandma's. Sheepishly, the boy transformed back into a humanoid, but his mother's lecture as she led him out of the suite was loud enough that it attracted other parents from 2 floors away. That caused an influx of parents, and a tide of children rushing to find their assigned servant and escape before their own parents found them loitering far longer than they were supposed to have. If mom didn't catch them before they got back to their own rooms, it didn't count, right? With all the troublemakers gone, the crown prince took Rue's hand and turned toward the door. Emissary, I will return Rue to you after dinner. Sisters, this is Emissary Carl, of the Darklight host in Sihosesa. Luke announced. Greetings, Emissary. The 2 older princesses responded with a curtsy. Are we going to food now? I'm hungry, Rue asked. Not quite yet. We've got to pick up the suitors for these 2 before we eat. But they're on the way, you won't have to wait long, he explained. Rue looked at Carl, and her brother patted her on the head. No, he's not a candidate. He's already a married man. Now, come help me scare the noble brats into behaving at dinner. Rue giggled, but gave her brother a suspicious look when he turned away. Was it always like this when you had power and respect? Nobody was ever this nice to her before, not even her biggest brother, who she had always considered one of the good ones. Getting a class really was an overpowered boost to your social status. While Rue was led away by her siblings, Dakarian and Barry were left with Carl and some time to kill. The actual dinner time won't be for another hour and a bit. How much time would it take for you to plan out the design for a duplicate of this room, in permanent form? Librarian Barry asked. If you want it the same as this, I can have it done in half a day. But if you have a room in mind, I can come up with something that suits the space in the next hour, and then I will do the actual upgrading later when I have time. Carl suggested. Oh, that would be lovely. I was thinking of a room 2 floors beneath this one and just down the hall. It doesn't have roof access, but there is a large patio that you could use to expand the illusionary domain if you needed. The Blue Dragon offered. Carl nodded. It's the obstacle course for flying that needs the most space. The other training areas are only a quarter that size, so they're not an issue at my rank. Perfect, let's head over there first, and then we will all go to dinner together. Tonight they will have a buffet in the main hall for anyone who wants to eat here. I would suggest going into town to try something fancy, but it's nearly impossible to get a good seat without booking in advance or kicking someone out. Barry offered. Kicking someone out? Carl replied, wondering what sort of system they had in place. Dakarian shrugged and answered for the embarrassed librarian. Pulling rank and simply taking a reservation made by a commoner well below your rank is an option for mythic dragons. It's rude, but what are they going to do about it? The Black Dragon's words were harsh, but Carl could tell that it wasn't something he routinely did. It did give Kara ideas, though. Not of kicking people out of their reservation. No, that would be no fun. She wanted to randomly crash someone's dinner party, just to see how far they would go to try to make her leave. If she was paying, Kara was pretty sure that she could just sit down at random people's tables whenever she wanted to eat. The look on their face would be priceless. Chapter 1372 Bring the Tutors. The room that Librarian Barry led them to was coincidentally a large storage room directly across the hall from his own suite beside the library. And he wasn't even going to try to pretend that it wasn't intentional. Somehow, Carl had to respect that level of honesty. But the room that he had picked, while it was likely chosen for proximity to both the library and his own room, was perfect for the job. It was far larger than a standard suite was, and looked like it was intended to hold seasonal furniture for this entire section of the castle. Only nobody was normally using it, so there were only a few boxes scattered around the walls. I will have the staff clean out the last of what is in here, and move it to another storage room. There isn't much, but the other storage room is nearly full, so it might take them an hour or two. Barry noted. Well, that's all right. We've got time for them to work while we eat. Then we will come back, I will upgrade the training room by the library, and all the kids will have an excuse to come visit your wing of the palace. Carl joked. Dakarian laughed. Getting them to even come close to the library is hard most of the time. It's like they're allergic to education. Carl shrugged. You just have to make it fun. If you can involve enough entertainment in class, they will actually go home and study for it so that they don't lose tomorrow. Keeping kids in class all day generally requires tying them to their chairs. The Black Dragon avatar laughed, while Librarian Barry let out a long-suffering sigh. Why do I get the feeling that if we keep talking about this, it will lead to a full revamp of the educational policy? He asked. Carl shook his head. Unlikely. There are far more blue dragons than there are Carls in the world, and convincing the church to change educational policy to introduce more hands-on learning and energy-burning exercises into their classroom time is unlikely to be a fast process. Carl knew that firsthand. The process still hadn't changed by the time that the next resurgence came around, so any changes that they were likely to make here would not spread outside the palace. Or at least they wouldn't affect the whole church. Dakarian smiled fondly at the memory of his training as a youth. You know, I grew up in Zindab, to the south of here, and most of our training was done on our wings. The blue dragons made us fly while we recited the answers to their questions. At the time, we thought that it was just them ruining a perfectly good flight, but now I get your point. Burning off all that young dragon energy is a good thing. Once they get older, it's easier to get them to sit all day. So it wasn't a new idea. It just wasn't how things were done here. The dining hall was unusually empty today, with only visitors present, and a few who did not have family in the palace, or near enough to fly out and visit for the day. The kingdom only took one day a week off, but the palace took it completely off, with only a small staff left on duty. Even the serving staff was just one young dragon with a large cart stocking a buffet, instead of the dozens of staff and fancily plated dishes of every other day. Carl loaded his plate, and followed Dakarian to the nearly empty table, only to find that they were suddenly popular. I heard that you made up a new challenge for the kids. An adolescent dragon began the moment that he sat down. Indeed, a modified training scenario, but it's excellent for youthful challenges. Though with a bit higher difficulty and some larger obstacles on the course, it could work for anyone. Carl agreed. I am the personal tutor for 2 of the girls who were with you today, and I was hoping to learn a little about it before they started demanding it tomorrow. He continued. Carl smiled. and Barry nodded. You should come with us when the emissary makes the secondary training room later. Oh? You're an emissary? My apologies, sir. I thought that you were one of us. Dicarion laughed, while Barry swatted the boy on the head. If he were one of us, you should still be more polite. But he's a mythic world dragon, not a librarian of the blue. It's you. I heard that you made quite an impression the other day flying in. I don't typically come to these dinners except on the weekend. They're too crowded, and my position would put me in a dark corner somewhere. The tutor noted. Well, the librarian will be in charge of the new room, so there is no harm in showing the tutors. A bit of extra practical exercise might help the kids focus. Carl suggested. It seems that we will have a big day ahead of us. Dicarion noted. We should have probably picked a bigger room. Carl agreed. But most of them were the children of servants, not nobles. They didn't have access to the wing where the royal library was. The total number who might want access to the room wasn't more than 60, in 3 major age groups. The youngest didn't have their class yet, and spent their days with the red dragons at the daycare. The next was the group who was with Princess Rue today, the younger kids who had just gotten their classes, and the last group was that of her older brothers. The teenage brats, as Barry called them. The whole age group was a pain, as they pushed the limits to see how much they could get away with and to establish their status as young nobles. After that, they were out of basic training and no longer his problem. They could join the army, take up noble duties, or move out of the palace and start their own lives. Chapter 1373. Azov was married? With Librarian Barry's suggestion, they gathered a dozen more tutors to come watch Carl work on the new training room. Why are we going to watch a construction team? One of the later arrivals asked. Dunno. Barry says we need to see it. Another replied. Carl smirked at Dicarion, who shook his head in dismay. The world dragon thinks this is funny, doesn't he? I have long theorized that the system is one grand, epic prank on the world, and we all just missed the point. The black dragon avatar asked. Carl shrugged. I don't know if I would call the system itself a prank, but it definitely loves playing pranks on people. Have you ever met someone who chose the randomize option when given it? Randomize? Carl nodded. Sometimes when you activate your system class and you qualify for more than one option, or when you are being given a class upgrade from a trial ground or other system reward, it will give you the option to randomize. But you must be very sure to read what it is asking to randomize. I have seen it turn a young soldier into the most lustrously furry wargen woman. They chose to randomize at a set of system stones in a trial instance, and it randomized everything from their new class to their hair color, gender, and species. That is terrifying, Dicarion replied, but Carl could see that he was trying not to laugh. Librarian Barry turned to them with an excited look. Oh, like the story of Queen David. Queen David? Carl asked. The blue dragon nodded eagerly, happy to get to tell the story. David was a mighty dwarven warrior, once known as the Dragon Slayer of Shumans. During his adventures, he tracked an evil dragon into a trial ground near Lake Vupchis in Syhosesa. Mighty as he was, the trial ground was no challenge to him, and upon his victory, he was given 2 choices. One choice was to surpass the mortal bonds and ascend to immortality, but it demanded a price. Never again could he set foot in the mortal world. The second option was one that none had seen before. The system asked him if he would like to randomize his reward. Now, the hero was no fool, and he extracted a promise from the system before he chose. The trial ground promised him that there were no outcomes that would weaken him. So he chose to randomize, and the system played a joke on him so cruel that none could have ever expected it. The reward that he was granted was ultimate political power. For a moment he rejoiced. He believed that now, he could finally change the laws of the lands to punish the rogue dragons and other evil creatures who plagued the dwarves. But how it was done was the problem. In one moment he was a mighty dwarven warrior, stout and proud, and in the next moment, he was an adolescent white dragoness, standing as the blushing bride to the immortal regent of the Dragon Isles. While the immortal regent was also confused by the situation, the system declared them husband and wife, and David the Dragon Slayer became David the Dragon Bride of the immortal regent. Carl laughed so loud that it echoed through the hallways. Wait, you mean Azov was married to a white dragon girl by the system? Oh, I am not letting him skate by without telling the story the next time I see him. Carl stopped as he realized nobody else was following him. You know the immortal regent? Dicarion asked. Of course I do. He's known the Supreme Lady for longer than I've been alive, and she likes to drag him to important events. Carl explained. It's a fairy tale. He's not supposed to be a real, living person. One of the tutors noted. Carl shook his head. He might wish he was imaginary now that I've found out that he got married and never introduced me to his wife. This is the sort of fully brewed tea that I need. In his mind, Kara cheered for gossip time. Opal is never going to forgive us for leaving her behind. Do you know how much she loves romance stories with a wild twist? How does the story end, anyhow? Dicarion asked. Supposedly, the immortal regent's queen ascended to immortality and left him behind to pursue power. It's not the same legend, but the story of his heartbreak is also told by many bards as a cautionary allegory about pursuing ambitious women. Librarian Barry noted. Dicarion smiled. You know, if you assume that both stories are true, it really tells a different story when you put them together. Carl nodded. It raises so many questions. Did the queen ever change forms again? Does becoming a white dragon come with the level of devotion to the white goddess as being born one does? Was David as adorable in human form as most young white dragons are? Dicarion raised a hand. Wait, back up. One of those questions does not belong. Carl shrugged. Kara needed to know. Young white dragons in humanoid form usually have shockingly white hair and delicate features, almost like fairies or elves. Kara nodded eagerly. She was taking notes. The librarian pinched the bridge of his nose. I don't know, and I really don't want to know. Thinking of someone known as Dragon Slayer as an adorable new bride is just disturbing. Haven't you met Kara? Small and adorable doesn't mean that they are not deadly. Carl noted. The blue dragon smiled. That scar makes her much more scary than the rest of her transformed appearance suggests. But I can see how the dichotomy would terrify people before she had it. Right, you never met her before she had the scars. She's still an adorable badger even with them, though. It's mostly just the mythic rank aura that scares people. But you get what I mean. Carl shrugged. One of the tutors laughed. No, I think the scary part is the whole, that's a chaos badger part. Not her appearance or aura. The others nodded in agreement. That was definitely the scary part. Even if the young ones didn't realize the true danger. Chapter 1374, Their Own Room. The storage room was empty and freshly cleaned when they arrived. Even the cobwebs in the corners had been removed. Carl double-checked the space that they had to work with, and then began to plan where he would put the runes. This space should be good enough for everything but the flying obstacle course. But that can be done outside. Even if it's raining, the outdoor air is good for them, he announced. The tutors laughed. The kids hated going out in the rain and getting wet. It wouldn't hurt them, but half the kids forgot to close their inner eyelids and would get pelted with rain in the eyeball, or it felt like a cold bath and they didn't like it. You can stand anywhere you like. I will carve the spell into the walls. Carl explained, then moved to the back wall to get started. He would make it the same as the other illusion, with nothing but the gargoyles added. It would keep it simple and low mana to upkeep. Even when the system receded, the dragons would be able to train here. Assuming the castle survived that long. That seemed unlikely. Even a good stone building had very slim odds of being able to last 10,000 years. The dragons watched silently as Carl carved the runes into the wall to create the illusionary domain, reality warp, and gargoyle spells. Then, he added some simple barriers to keep occupants from leaving at random points within the castle itself. He just left the upper parts of the sky open as an emergency exit, and the garden gate. Unfortunately for the blue dragons, none of them could read what he was writing, which was driving them all insane. But when he finished and activated the spell, they could only stare in awe at the huge garden they appeared to be standing in. This is beautiful. Is it durable? It's an illusion, right? Yes, it's a solid illusion. It is possible for a stronger totem or myth to shatter it, but as long as the room itself isn't damaged, you can reactivate it. Personally, I recommend just keeping it for training children. They couldn't actually damage anything in here if they tried, and it will cost less mana for upkeep when you have the gargoyles fighting at lower power levels. Carl explained. Then, he placed a mana crystal by the entrance on a plinth. This will store enough mana to keep the illusion active for some time without maintenance, so that you don't need to worry if the kids sneak in to compete. I've adjusted the illusion to put a barrier over it, but you can still fill it with mana. Dicarion and Barry channeled mana into the crystal for a few seconds, then frowned at each other. How much capacity did you manage to give such a small crystal? Barry asked. The whole plinth is actually mana crystal. It just looks like stone inside the illusion. If you turn it off and look in the corner of the room, you'll see a huge crystal. Carl laughed. Are you expecting it to take that much damage that you needed such a huge mana storage? Barry asked. Carl shook his head. No, but if you send some of the older kids in here, one's getting close to the totem rank, you'll start burning through a load of mana if they're training on the target range. It's better to have at least a day or two worth of storage. The tutors nodded. That made perfect sense. They were not at that level, but if someone stronger than them was going all out in here with their friends all day, then even a mythic ranked barrier or gargoyle would need quite a bit of replenishment. This really is a versatile training ground. But can I ask why the gargoyles all look like bunny girls? One of the tutors asked. Did you want something different? I can change them. It's not a problem. No, they're fine, I guess. I was curious in a more academic way. Carl smiled at him. Oh, in that case, it's for motivation. Step into the sparring ring and challenge one of them to a match, and you'll understand. The tutor looked confused, but he stepped into the ring and drew his sword. A bunny maid entered the ring, curtsied politely, and then drew a two-handed battle axe. The weapon looked ridiculously oversized next to the petite maid, but her speed was incredible, and the tutor was immediately forced onto the defensive, as he hadn't been expecting her to attack with such force. What the hell was that? Barry asked as the tutor finally managed to fight the maid to a standstill. They're gargoyles, they have basic weapon proficiencies, and I gave them an option to use warrior-type skills. But gargoyles aren't weak, no matter what they look like. They auto-adjust to your rank when sparring, so it's a fair fight. But they're not going to go easy on you when the victory condition is first blood. Carl explained. Did he just get unlucky with the axe? One of the tutors asked. Possibly. Dual scimitars or a Nodachi-style longsword probably wouldn't be better. Bunnies are fast and agile, with strong legs. May I? The second tutor asked. Go ahead. There are more sparring rings. The dragon rushed to an open ring, and bowed to the maid, who curtsied to him. He took out a mage's staff, and the maid chose dual scimitars. He had a barrier spell, but the maid was fast. Very fast. It only took half a second before she charged, dropped to her knees and slid under his lightning bolt, then swatted his legs out from under him with the flat of her blade. The mage rolled to his knees as she returned to her starting spot. I get it now. It is incredibly humbling to have your ass kicked by a bunny girl in a maid outfit, he muttered. Barry smiled. Carl was on to something. Nothing was quite as motivating as mild embarrassment. Chapter 1375 should have brought snacks. After 5 minutes, the two contestants were thoroughly humbled and grateful to escape the ring. Oh, that's what I forgot. We didn't call for staff to bring refreshments. If they're going to be training, we should have at least one palace maid on hand to call for drinks and light snacks. Carl realized. And popcorn, Dakarian muttered. Librarian Barry smirked. This was definitely popcorn-worthy. He had expected the children to be humbled, but the gargoyles had been holding back on them far more than he realized. When they were facing a trained combatant, they were brutal. Adorable but brutal. And Carl had found the perfect way to torture the dragons. The bunnies triggered their species' innate prey drive. They wanted to hunt them, needed to hunt them once they got started. And then they lost the fight to prey. Even if their mind knew that it was only logical to lose to gargoyles who had much more innate combat potential than they did, their instincts screamed at them to improve themselves, and that it was shameful to not be winning this fight. All right, I need to try. We're all tutors, not soldiers, but one of us has to be able to land a hit. One of the older blue dragons insisted. You know we're like the worst possible choice to win this contest, right? None of us are even combat instructors. One of the others noted. Oh, that's an idea. Let's bring a palace guard. We can top up the mana for him to fight. One of the others suggested. The palace guards were mostly overlords, ceremonial in nature, while the soldiers outside were totems and myths. One of the tutors ran outside, then came right back in with a door guard from the library, who looked thoroughly confused. We need you to beat up the bunny. The dragon was explaining. Librarian? The guard asked, hoping for clarification. It's a training exercise. The goal is to land a hit on the bunny maids, and the tutors here have all realized that they cannot. So, they want you to try and prove that it is possible. Barry explained. Do we have a healer? The guard asked. The bunny is a gargoyle. She will regenerate within seconds. They have innate, trollish regeneration level self-healing. Carl offered. The guard frowned. If that's the case, what am I even doing guarding the library? That thing can likely beat me senseless. Carl shook his head. The enchantment will set their attack power and movement to your level when you're in the sparring ring. This is a training room, not a punishment. The guard nodded and drew his blade before entering the ring. As usual, the maid curtsied as she drew her weapon, a battle staff this time, with metal balls at the ends. The battle was immediate and furious, with two trained combatants going all out with each other. 5 strikes in, the guard grabbed the center of the staff, trying to gain control. But the bunny was more agile, and used his hold on the staff as leverage to give him a double-footed kick that slid him halfway across the arena. I should have seen that coming. He muttered as the gargoyle backed off to let him recover. He should just be glad that I didn't let the badger program their fighting style. Carl quietly joked to Dakarian. The black dragon smirked. She would have definitely kicked him in the dick. Kara left her space to join the fun. You get me. That's rare. But if they're going to leave their vitals exposed like that, it's only right that you should attack them. Dakarian smiled down at Kara. And what do you consider the vitals? The basics. Eyes, ears, groin, that spot between the shoulder blades, and the Achilles tendon. Kara replied with a shrug. Barry frowned, while Dicarion smirked at the badger. None of those are lethal strikes. The librarian noted. Well, the center of the back is if you go through to the organs. Dicarion corrected. Still, how are those the vital areas? Kara shrugged. The goal of fighting isn't to kill, it's to make them stop wanting to fight you. I only kill annoying things, tasty things, and ones that Sister Ray wants for her art exhibitions. That was the blood destruction demonic spider you mentioned earlier, was it not? Barry asked. That's her. She's an incredible artist. She does all our fashion, but she also does dioramas. Kara explained. He didn't want to know. He definitely didn't want to know what the mythic ranked demonic spider called art in diorama form. But he was afraid he already knew. The guard and the gargoyle fought for a few more minutes, and then disaster struck. A well-placed skill knocked the staff from her hands, and the guard finally managed to land a sword strike across her abdomen. The bunny leapt back and bowed politely, then frowned as she held her dress together. A few seconds later, it mended itself, as the dress was part of the gargoyle spell. But his victory was secure. The guard had proven that he could land a strike on the gargoyles. Carl knew that in the future, there were going to be many more creative contests than simply trying to land a strike. The better that the combatants got, the more specific that they could get. But for now, even against the average guard, the maids were still a serious contestant. Do you mind if I call someone else over? The guard asked. Just not too powerful. This is mostly intended for student training. It's not set up for anyone totem rank or higher. Carl agreed. The guard smiled. Actually, I was thinking of someone younger. There is a combat prodigy among the teens. A commoner swamp dragon berserker. He should be in the palace right now as his mother works here. Oh, that should be fun. This is an excellent spot for those who excel at their rank. If they're strong enough, they can ask the maids to fight a rank above them. There is no better way to get a feel for the mana use at different levels, or to measure your current capability. Carl suggested. I foresee much pain in their future. Dicarion noted. Wait until they get the dumb idea to try to flip her skirt. They don't know true pain yet. Kara joked, with an evil smirk on her face. Chapter 1376 Peak Motivation. Flipping the maid's skirts wouldn't get you a free voyeur show. They were wearing tights underneath. But they would hurt you for trying. And Kara was looking forward to the day that someone learned. I didn't use the Dark Flame Phoenix as the guardian of the targets this time. I thought that I would switch it up to make it a little more regionally festive. Carl noted, now that they had fully explored the abilities of the gargoyles. Barry turned to the nearest tutor, and motioned for him to begin targeting the ranged attack dummies. The moment that he did, a small black dragon appeared above the target area, and intercepted the attack with an equal strength. Disintegrate attack, one of the more basic void magic spells. Oh, that's just evil. You had a toddler be the guardian? Couldn't you make it scale with strength? Dicarion asked. It does, but 2 ranks down in age. By the time that someone like the palace guard attacks it, the defensive dragon should be 10 meters long, nearly an adult. Carl explained. Dicarion laughed. You know that in a generation, everyone will forget that you made this just because the librarian asked you to, and they will start spreading rumors about it being an ancient secret room where you can test yourself against the skills of the greatest dragons of their generation. They're going to be convinced that there were actually small children that talented, and that they could somehow, one day, meet that standard. Carl shrugged, but the tutors looked excited. That is brilliant. I should tell them that. Then, they'll keep trying and improving until they can actually keep up with the dragon. One suggested. And this is how legends start. Just 2 dragons playing a prank on children to get them to behave in class. Librarian Barry sighed. It's brilliant, really. Everyone likes a good legend. As long as the blue dragons and the library know the truth, what does it matter if everyone else believes otherwise? Kara asked. The blue dragons all looked pained. Knowledge is sacred. To deliberately spread misinformation like this, it's not right. The badger shrugged. Well, that is one way of looking at it. But either way, they're going to flock to this place and start rumors about how it was created, since nobody can see anything but the illusion. Well, unless they're an immortal with a vision skill, but that hardly counts. It's a shame that everyone is with their families right now, or we could stress test the room to see how much mana we need to stock. That will be valuable information in the near future. Once it's being occupied full-time by the hatchlings, we're going to be constantly fueling it. Librarian Barry noted. I'm sure that we can find a couple of totems with large mana pools to keep the place fully charged. But I will load it up with mana before we go. Carl offered. The 2 myths laughed, until Carl started to pour mana into the crystal, and the ambient mana level in the area dropped. Gods below, that's intense. What sort of skill is that? I need it. Dicarion gasped. Not a skill, I'm just a world dragon avatar, and I can move an immense amount of mana, as well as regenerate it. My mana pool being enormous is a prerequisite for many of the crafting tasks that I do, and I regenerate a percentage a second, so it can be a bit intense when I'm low. Carl informed him. His physique had capped out his stats. There shouldn't be a myth stronger in base power than he was now that he had been given plenty of time to adapt to the rank. Plus, he was considered epic grade by the system, a step above the average creature. It would be shocking if they could compete with him. Well, even if almost everyone is spending the day with their family, there should be some staff members that we can steal for our testing, and some other unattended civilians. Kara suggested. Librarian Barry smiled. You have a good point. While there aren't many on duty today, many of the staff don't have family in the palace area, so they're just relaxing for the day. They might appreciate the chance to come train. They don't get many opportunities for it, and most of the good facilities are on the properties of the noble families, where a palace worker wouldn't get permission to go. I will go find people, Kara declared, and then she was running out the door before anyone could stop her. We've been hoodwinked. Barry sighed. It was inevitable, really. She hasn't had a chance to explore the palace yet. But I gave her strict instructions not to steal anything or kill anyone. Carl replied. Mostly because it would mess up the timeline, and getting on everyone's bad side would only make their mission to make Rue the Queen more difficult. That was a mission that was looking more possible by the day, and today she was seated with the Crown Prince and some of the older royals for dinner. Her advancement had been the talk of the royal family all week, and Rue was getting close to royal rank, which would be a second advancement in the same month. A feat that was virtually unheard of. With that sort of luck or outside assistance, everyone wanted to get on her good side. The news of the training area hadn't spread through most of the family yet, but the Crown Prince knew, and he fully intended to keep Rue close until he knew just how far Carl was willing to go to fulfill whatever mission the Chaos Dragon had sent him to complete. It had to be more than simply awakening Rue and getting her up to the standard of her peers. She was already very nearly there, and Carl was just getting comfortable in the palace. It wasn't a secret that he planned to be here for some time, and Lucas intended to find out just exactly why. Chapter 1377 Prospects. Crown Prince Lucas brought Rue to sit next to him at the family dinner, ostensibly so that they could celebrate her good luck at advancing, but also so that he could taunt the queen a little with her presence. The Crown Prince wasn't any bigger fan of her than Princess Rue was, though for different reasons. He wasn't her child either, but that was due to an indiscretion on the king's part when he was still the Crown Prince. His mother didn't have the status to be queen, so to make the king's firstborn a legitimate child, she was made a consort, and given a lovely palace in the countryside. The queen had been a political match with the royal family of Unzatherb, the daughter of the royal seer. She checked all the boxes for a good queen. Strong, intelligent, well-educated, and she had rare class abilities to optimize her children, so they were all above average even for royals. But the Crown Prince suspected that her personality really was irredeemable. The woman was evil to the core. The eldest princess smiled at Rue, who was doing her best to remember every bit of royal etiquette, now that someone was actually watching her actions. So, little Rue, what did you plan to do now that you have a class? I hear that you've gotten a most wonderful tutor from Sihosesa, she asked. Rue smiled. He really is wonderful, eldest sister. Emissary Carl knows all sorts of amazing skills as an avatar of the World Dragon, and he is helping me learn all the basics of spell control that I was behind on. The eldest princess smiled, while the Crown Prince smirked at her. You know, we could likely bring your boy over for some training. Perhaps help him get his system up and running. Watching the avatar work is a unique sort of joy, he suggested. The princess laughed. My boy is 3 years old, certainly not old enough to be awakening his system interface. Perhaps the fourth prince and his wife would like to take you up on your offer, though. As I recall, their daughter is 5 now, and it's nearly time for her to awaken. The fourth prince was a portly young man in humanoid form, and most of the other royals looked at him with disdain. He had also married a minor noble's daughter from Kapi, and their lone daughter was born at awakened rank, practically a cripple by the standards of the Gathuzan royal family. The two of them made a good couple, but they were not highly respected among their peers, though that had less to do with his family than his own lack of ambition. The fourth prince shrugged. She will awaken in due time. No need to rush these things. In his mind, it was better that his child didn't awaken too early. Even 1 year later than her peers would be perfect, as with her innate disadvantage in rank it would remove her from anyone's consideration of royal succession. Among the royal heirs to the Gathuzan crown, it was less important to be born first than to be the most powerful. Right now, the firstborn was Crown Prince, and had worked hard to secure his title. But if a prodigy arose among his siblings, or even the next generation, there was a good possibility that the king would hold off and pass the throne to someone else. Dragons lived for thousands of years. There was no urgent need to pass along the throne, as the king had barely ruled for 2 centuries. Young Rue really does have a promising future ahead of her. To think that she would get such an incredible class, and then an immediate advancement. Just a little more growth and our late bloomer will start to catch up. It's just a shame that she's not a proper dragon. Perhaps she will grow into it. I hear that the dragonkin clerics often do. One of the king's consorts suggested. The queen scoffed. That doesn't make them proper dragons, even if they can transform. As good as it to know that the royal lineage hasn't produced a total waste, it's still not the same as being born a true shadow dragon. The crown prince smiled at her. That is true, but with her promise, she might be an excellent match for one of our allies. Do you remember my friend Neil from Zararag? He's got quite a fondness for delicate-boned dragonkin ladies. Perhaps our lovely Rue would be a good match for the crown prince of Zararag. Rue tried not to laugh at the expression on the queen's face at the thought of any member of their family marrying a dwarf. But Neil Stonecrusher was a genuinely great person. She had met him many times before when he came to visit her older brother. He was also a mythic-ranked earth shaman of the Zararag Hill Dwarves. There weren't many nations that could compare to Gthuzan in political influence, but Zararag was one of them, and the two nations had always had uneasy relations. However, instead of staying quiet and letting the comment blow over, Prince Lucas decided to double down. The avatar of the world dragon knows the brutality skill, and that would increase the height of a mythic dwarf by 90%. That's enough to make him taller than I am. With those thick dwarven arms, I bet he would give the best hugs. A few of the ladies in the room blushed, while the king quietly laughed. Enough teasing the princess. If there is to be a marriage alliance with Zararag, you can discuss it in my office, and not at the dinner table. The queen frowned delicately at the comment. How dare he even consider that? His half-breed daughter as queen of Zararag? Unacceptable. But the queen did not miss the looks from the younger generation of dragons at the table. The political benefits of that sort of alliance would be immense. But the union of a dragon and a dwarven family was not an easy one to obtain. There was too much history between dragons and hill dwarves for either family to easily accept the blending of families. On the other hand, dwarves and elves had been at odds for centuries. Not exactly as enemies the way that the dwarves were with dragons or giants. More as rivals. If the dwarven king did marry a half-elven dragonkin, he would be known forever as a man with an elf fetish. Chapter 1378 Kara Needs Volunteers. Princess Rue ate quietly for some time as the conversation turned to domestic affairs. Those were all things that she was too young to be involved in. Only once they grew close to adulthood did the royal family members gain roles within the government or bureaucracy. Prince Lucas did his best to keep her in the loop, though. He quietly described the situation when others discussed official business, and the nuance behind relationships between noble families that were relevant to matters of state. By the time that the dessert course came around, it was no secret that the crown princess had taken a liking to the young princess, and that he intended to groom her for a greater role than that of being married off to some rising nobleman's son. The Gthuzan royal family wasn't so particular about gender, as long as you had ability and power. But with dozens of royals already half a century or more her senior, there weren't many major roles open unless she became overwhelmingly strong. It was a drawback of being among the youngest of a large family. Every good job was already taken by someone who had proven that they deserved it, and they were all family so they wouldn't be bumped out just to make space for you. But Rue didn't mind. Now that she had Carl and Kara here to encourage and guide her, she was certain that she would find a way to get vengeance on everyone who had bullied her for being slow to awaken. Once she was done with that, she would definitely be able to find a good spot for herself. Maybe that alliance with the dwarves wouldn't be too bad. The pained face on the queen's face made it a tempting option, even if it seemed unlikely to happen. However, picking her future husband by who irritated her stepmother the most probably wasn't the secret to a happy marriage. It might be, but most likely not. Prince Lucas watched as Rue's mind seemed to wander, and at first assumed that she simply couldn't follow the domestic affairs conversation. However, when she commented about the current transport issues due to heavy rain, he realized that the issue wasn't that she didn't understand. It was simply that none of this mattered to her. As part of your education effort, to catch up to your siblings, why don't you accompany me to work during the afternoons this week? He asked Rue, who was only vaguely paying attention to the conversation, as they contemplated all the possible foreign royal mages that would make her stepmother's face scrunch up in that, "I'm angry but can't do anything about it" look. "Oh, that sounds fun. You're in charge of palace guard training, right?" she asked. "And the daily operations of my own holdings. You'll be there for a bit of both, and you'll still have all morning to train with the envoy." Lucas agreed. Rue's excited smile made her siblings chuckle in amusement, before decades of ingrained suspicion kicked in and made them wonder whose position Crown Prince Lucas was training her to take over. She wasn't set to inherit any territories, so it wasn't knowledge that she was in urgent need of, and if she had no lands and wasn't going to be marrying a royal, there was no need for her to know about the training process for a palace guard. None of what he was saying boded well for them. "Brother, wouldn't it be better to leave her with her sisters? If we're preparing her for a political wedding, surely she's further behind in the areas we specialize in than in." Whatever it is that you do, the eldest princess suggested. A few of the other girls nodded sycophantically, as did the queen. Prince Lucas shook his head. I'm afraid that she's still some years from needing that particular bit of her training. First, it's better that she understands how things work. Did you not all start out with the basic training on how to run a household and budget a holding? That's the basics of the basics for a noble or royal bride, isn't it? The other princesses glared at him. He wasn't wrong. But they had learned it during basic education from a tutor, not during practical training with the crown prince. In fact, even Rue should have learned what they did. She was old enough that it should have already been in her basic education. Rue smiled at Lucas. If it's going to be a problem or keep you from your duties, I can just ask Sister Kara all about it. She told me that she's an expert when it comes to financial management. The prince smiled, while a few of the other men at the table nearly choked on their dessert. The Chaos Badger offered to teach her about making money? Did the creature even understand business on a level that didn't involve robbery or murder? In the courtyard of the palace, where Kara had wandered, looking for interesting people, the badger sneezed. Someone is talking trash about me, she insisted. Probably the blue dragons. Did you find the person that you went looking for? Carl asked. Yep. He's still eating. I'm looking for more people now. As soon as she finished messaging Carl, Kara found what she had been looking for. The Red Dragon Orphanage, which doubled as daycare for palace staff. If this place didn't have volunteers, nowhere would. She learned that from Remy. Kara pointedly ignored the glare from the red dragons as she transformed and skipped toward the front door in humanoid form. Oh no, you don't. No visitors until all the dishes are done. The matron insisted. Kara looked her over. Overlord rank Red Dragon, cleric in class. Not a bad option. You will do too. I need volunteers for magical skills educational games and sparring practice, she declared. Excuse me? You are excused. Now how about 6 of them? That should be good. Any rank before adulthood is fine. And we will need you too. Now can we leave? Immediately? Or are some of them still doing dishes? Do you come with a translator? The matron asked. Kara nodded happily. Of course. Bring the children and I will lead you to him. Librarian Barry should be there too. Chapter 1379. There is a defender. Relying on boldness to get her what she wanted, Kara promptly found herself placed in air jail when she tried to walk past the matron. We're on a schedule here. I've got a berserker to pick up soon as well, she insisted, turning in the matron's grip, so she was looking at the dragon. The red dragon stared at the strange girl dangling in her hands, then placed Kara back on the ground. What training area are you talking about? Most of them are strictly off-limits to the children of commoners, staff and lower nobles. She tried, hoping to make sense of Kara's ramblings. We just made a new one near the library. It's wonderful and it's open to all. I plan to make the librarian take responsibility for its maintenance. Kara explained. If it was being operated by the blue dragons, then it would be open to all. But the way that Kara phrased it sounded more like it wasn't Barry's idea at all, just something that was being foisted on him. Does the librarian know yet? Kara nodded eagerly. He even asked for it on his own. Who made it? You said it was just created. Carl, the world dragon avatar from Sihosesa. There are maids with cake. Kara explained. The kids began cheering about cake, and the matron glared at Kara. Did you take lessons in how to piss me off? Or does it come naturally? Kara smirked, then transformed, so she fell out of the dragon's hands before transforming back. It's a natural talent, but I have a lot of practice. You know, this is much easier when people don't ask questions. Just trust me on this one. The Carl never makes things that aren't fun. The matron looked inside, then pointed at a group of kids. You're all coming with me. No lazing about the house, just because your duties were finished early. Let's go see what the World Dragon Avatar needs children who just got their class for. The matron relented. If nothing else, she could dump some of the brats on him for a few hours while she took a break. The group that she pointed to, and a bunch more who were just eager to get out of their rooms and do something that might be fun, all gathered at the door, getting their outdoor shoes on. Perfect. The more, the merrier. Now, follow me, loyal minions. Kara declared as she removed a Darklight Host banner from her space and attached it to a spear as a tour guide flag. Never mind that the kids all knew their way around better than she did. The matron shook her head in dismay as the badger led a procession of kids through the palace, taking detours through restricted areas, and then stopping at the family suites. Pardon me, young lady, we're here to collect your berserker. Can he come out and play? Kara greeted the elderly dragon who opened the door. The old woman laughed. His father informed me of the situation. Yes, he can come out to play. Do you mind taking his little brother as well? Of course. As long as he is old enough to have a class. Two boys soon joined the procession, and Kara led everyone through the halls, where they were soon joined by a group of palace guards, who had been warned that someone was leading a tour group through the service hallways that were not open to the public. Lady Kara, is there a reason we're not using the main hallway? It leads directly to the library. The guard whispered. Why didn't you say that earlier? Lead the way. The guard shook his head in dismay as he realized that Kara was lost and just walking in the general direction of Karl without regard to what hallways they were in. By the time that they finally arrived, Princess Rue and Lucas had already returned to the training area. Rue was sparring with one of the maids, while Barry took notes and Lucas shouted hints to her. The blue dragon saw that the berserker he had been promised was finally here, and ran over to grab the boy. Perfect timing. Go to the sparring ring and pick your weapon. The combat maids will test your skills. The goal is to land a strike, and if that's too easy, you can do it when they're a rank higher than you. The librarian explained. Oh, this place is wonderful. I don't recall there being a garden on this side of the palace. Was this blocked off before? He asked. In a way. It wasn't here before today, but that's not the important part. I need research data on your combat skills. The orphanage matron sighed when Kara smirked at the blue dragon. Those were surprisingly difficult to understand when they were working together. Even when they were using whole sentences, they skipped too many of the little details that were needed for anyone to understand them. Karl whistled, getting everyone's attention. Welcome guests. We need data for the blue dragons. So, I would like all of you to line up in front of the targets here on the row of black stones. Then, on my signal, start trying to hit the targets with ranged skills. The kids looked confused, but they lined up anyhow. What they didn't understand was how this was supposed to be a challenge. Even the youngest of them could at least aim their skills well enough to hit a stationary target. Then the first one activated a skill, and a tiny shadow dragon appeared to block it with a disintegrate attack. Gah! There is a defender! The girl shouted, while the others laughed. The little dragon looked extremely smug as it circled overhead, and the kids began to understand the game. You're never going to get rid of them now, Dakarian whispered as Karl watched the chaos unfold. That's fine. I've still got my room to train Rue in. I can leave this one for whatever chaos finds its way to the library wing. Karl whispered back. That's diabolical. The blue dragon couldn't be in two places at one time, but there was valuable training data to be gathered in both as soon as Karl started training Rue in. Private again. Chapter 1380. Lucas getting closer. The students trained until they were exhausted, and the red dragon finally demanded that they return home, well after their usual bedtime. That let Karl take Rue to bed at a reasonable hour, and let the other dragons return to their rooms to prepare for the return to work in the morning. The only one that wasn't planning a big morning was Prince Lucas, as he was deliberately putting off all the interesting parts of his day for after lunch, so that Rue would be there to see that his day was more than endless boredom. It was the opposite of how he usually did things. Normally, he would get all the fun things done first, and then do the rest so that he didn't have the temptation to ditch the boring parts. It was the only way that he got them done at all. While Rue and Karl worked on her mana reserves for the morning, having her draw in increasingly large amounts with Kara's enthusiastic assistance, the Crown Prince focused on finishing all the paperwork waiting in his inbox. To say that Nix, his assistant and best friend, was shocked was an understatement. Lucas never got all the paperwork done in the same day it arrived, much less before lunch. All right, Spill. What has you all worked up today? Do we have visitors? Should I prepare rooms in the royal harem wing? The incubus asked curiously. It's not like that. I'm spending the afternoon with my little sister. We're going to go inspect the troops, visit some of the minor royals whose welfare is under my jurisdiction, and then go for dinner. Lucas explained. Oh, you are not leaving me behind for this. You mean Rue, right? Rue is adorable, and I hear that she has a class now. Void Avatar. Isn't it? He asked. That's right. I'm curious to see what sort of skills she is going to gain from such an interesting class. Lucas agreed. Then shouldn't you be at her training instead? Lucas shook his head. No, she's not going to pick up a new spell without any skill points, and she's not going to get them from a basic training scenario with the World Dragon avatar. Though putting 2 or 3 avatars in the same spot is bound to lead to something good if you leave them long enough. 3? Don't tell me that Killjoy Dakarian is with them. Nix complained. Most likely. He's become fast friends with the World Dragon, Karl. Plus, the presence of the Chaos Badger seems to trigger his danger sense, and he can't be too far from her, in case she does something that leads to mass death. Nix smirked at the prince. Or maybe mass procreation. Chaos is like that. Oh gods, I hadn't thought about that. But the badger doesn't seem like the sort to go out of her way to set up an orgy, or drug everyone with fertility magic. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but unlikely. Lucas realized. Kara felt her ear itch as someone was talking about her. then annoyance as she became certain that they had good ideas that she hadn't thought of yet. Rue was doing well with her mana comprehension, and Kara was starting to introduce royal rank mana to the influx, just to see if her body would begin to adapt, or if it was too soon to start pushing her toward a second advancement. With the blood of a king in her veins, she might be faster than usual to adapt. The leadership of the nation was chosen by power level within the eligible family members. But so far, there hadn't been any sign that Rue was ready for a second rank. She was only absorbing the commander rank mana, and she was still growing her mana pool steadily. To Kara, that was a sign that she wasn't even close to the bottleneck, so she would have to suffer the silence for a little longer, as meditation with mana overload was the most effective way to grow. "Hey, I got a skill point," Rue cheered just before lunch break. "A point? Did you get an achievement or something?" Kara asked. Rue shook her head. "Not that I know of, but I got a point and now I can get a spell. They're only 1 point each, and there are a bunch of them." It was a shame that they couldn't see each other's skill trees, but Kara trusted Rue to make the right choice. "All right, I have a new spell. Void Barrier. I have defensive magic now," she announced. Kara smiled. That was easier than teaching her how to use Disintegrate as a barrier-type spell, and every mage needed a little bit of both offense and defense. "Ooh, we should have the Carl teach you all about Beast Armor. That spell is a wonderful one, and it works for pretty much everyone," Kara suggested. Carl nodded. "Bestial Raiment is a very friendly spell. If you would like to learn it, the spell will make you armor so you have a layer of protection under your barrier. It's also epic grade, and it scales with your level so you can keep using it forever. Can you make it dragon-themed?" Rue pleaded. "I can try. Just give me a moment and I will try to alter the spell a little to guarantee you something dragon-related." Carl agreed. Now that she had mentioned it, the idea sounded interesting. The only question was what he could combine that might improve an epic skill or at least convert it to dragon armor. Perhaps beast form? That might work, as she was a dragonkin. He might also have luck with Draconic Might, which would improve strength. The dragon in the name might be enough to alter the armor spell. It was a bit of a dilemma, but he had time. She was about to head out for the afternoon with her brother, and that meant that Carl could spend half the day planning out spells for her advancement, to build her into a bigger, better candidate for the throne. Chapter 1381 Options. Prince Lucas arrived promptly after lunch, his assistant following along dutifully behind him. Carl couldn't help but notice the annoyed look that the crown prince was giving the incubus when he realized that Rue was more excited to see Nyx than she was to see him. But the princess' lack of filter more than made up for it. "Nyx, I just found out that you're a boy. Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, hands on her hips. "You didn't know? Girl, I'm not feminine, I'm just fabulous. Plus, I'm quite sure that we've been over this before." The incubus joked. Rue frowned. Had she heard that from him before? No, she didn't think so. But there were parts of that event that were a blur of sugar and excitement. She might have talked to him at some point and then forgotten about it. As they walked out of the room, chatting happily about all the things that they were going to get to see today, and the important parts of the Crown Prince's responsibility, Carl got to work on modifying spells. The first option was to combine Bestial Raiment with Beast Form. That was the clear winner for trying to turn a dragon-kin into a dragon. So, Carl got to work trying to combine the two epic grade skills, already knowing that the combination was likely to be somewhere between implausible and impossible to actually use. Combined skills were normally a rank or more above their component parts, so this was likely to be artifact grade at the very least. However, it was still worth trying. Line by line, Carl worked his way through the combination of spells, with a focus on not removing the lines about innate beast bloodlines when he converted the two spells. That should let anyone with dragon blood transform into a dragon at will, with the armor adapting to the situation, as it was designed to. It might not be perfect, and Carl assumed that he would still look like a larger-than-average cat demon in this transformation, but it was quite satisfying to complete the process. Lost in his work, Carl nearly missed the call to dinner, and only came back to reality when Kara gently nudged him to see if he was hungry. 5 more minutes and I'll have the basics ready. Then we can eat, and I will spend the rest of the evening preparing the spell for use," he instructed while Kara picked out clothing. "All right, let's go eat. Did the maid say that this is one of the mandatory formal dinners? Or are we just eating in the dining room?" he asked. "We're at the head table this time with Rue and the Crown Prince. Formal sort of event. Look, I even put on my best princess dress," Kara declared proudly. Honestly, it looked like a wedding dress with black accents, but Carl wasn't going to argue about it. The palace had sent not just 1 but 2 maids and a guard to escort them to dinner, which was a new one to Carl. They had been here long enough that they wouldn't get lost on their way to eat. But before it had always just been Rue who led them. "Is there some big event today?" Carl asked as they got close to their destination. "Nothing major. It's just a Monday evening dinner according to the schedule. But as guests at the high table, there are special considerations." You get an extra escort, a guard, and we will need your dinner preferences before we arrive. The maid explained. Yes, my dinner preference is yes. Kara replied quickly. No way was she letting them cheat her out of the good food. The maid smiled gently. What I mean is that we've got different meats and meat-free options, so that every guest at the high table gets exactly what type of meal they would prefer. Oh, then I will take all of them. And cake. The maid nodded. The mixed platter with cake for dessert. Understood, Lady Kara. Carl shrugged. I will try what she's having. Nothing that the royal kitchens turn out is likely to be inedible. The room was mostly empty when they arrived, but Crown Prince Lucas, Rue and the king were all gathered at the front of the room, chatting easily while sipping juice. Carl had expected that from Rue, who always picked juice over anything else, but even the king was not drinking liquor today. Not even a glass of wine, which would be the customary pre-meal beverage. Ah, Envoy Carl, Lady Kara, welcome. Please, join us at the head table today. We have most wonderful news. The king declared. Certainly. Thank you for the consideration, Your Majesty. Carl replied, while Rue nearly vibrated with excitement. But they couldn't sit until everyone was present, as it was considered horribly rude to arrive at dinner after the king was seated, and he had arrived quite early today. You look like you're going to burst. Carl joked as Rue came out from behind her older brother. Rue nodded rapidly, but didn't speak. We've got big news. But she promised not to say anything until the king makes the formal announcement. It's killing her inside not to be able to tell you right away, and she even tried to escape earlier, just to share the news. Prince Lucas explained. I see how it is. Keeping secrets is hard. Carl agreed. And you're really bad at it. Kara mentally added. I blame Thor. Kara had to try not to laugh at Carl's response. He wasn't wrong. Thor was nearly incapable of keeping a secret. Every time he found out something good, he wanted to share it with the world so that everyone knew how good it was. The closest that she had ever seen him come to keeping a secret was when he tried to block his thoughts from Opal, so that she couldn't use them to narrate private moments that he spent with Tessa. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.